All right, let's bring the City of Marine City Commission meeting to order. Regular meeting Thursday, October 5th, 2017, 7 p.m. Could we please stand for a prayer, please? Reverend Doro will be presiding.
David, I'm curious to see what this is all about, but I notice it's a bigger picture than what's at the post office.
They use the red eye reduction.
Anyway, I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here. I'm Pastor Gerhard Dorrell and serving as vacancy pastor at the church up the street here or down the street, depending on which direction you're going, at Living Faith Lutheran Church. As of Labor Day weekend, I thought that you would not see me on this night. Only, not that I wouldn't enjoy being here, but because I called out to a young pastor and his wife came to visit. They were very impressed by the community and everything, and then they still said, we're staying put in Minnesota. So we will be waiting again. We're going to have a new call list, and we will be waiting again for that opportunity to invite someone else to come and be a part of this community and to serve in the midst. But the congregation continues to move forward, continues to be our Wednesday night ministry to children. We've been blessed with at least a dozen every Wednesday evening, and it's kind of like the new gal who's working with us is realizing that when you take a first grader and a sixth grader and put everything in between, it makes an interesting mix of kids. And there was one little boy the other night that Wednesday night I was getting ready to try to decide whether to throw him out or to keep him, and I thought, the Lord would want us to keep him and minister to him. And then his mother comes to pick him up early, and he says, do I have to leave? And then, of course, he uses the line. I'm thinking, what a schmoozer this guy is. He uses the line, he says, yeah, I want to stay here and learn about Jesus. Yeah, okay. So we put a sign of the cross on his forehead and moved on. Anyway, let's begin this night in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, in the midst of our daily living, we're so much aware of your hand of blessing. You give us communities in which to live, and we enjoy that peace and that quiet, of the sort of the sameness of each and every day. And we turn on the news and we recognize how easily that is disturbed. Yet in the midst of all of that disturbing, in the midst of evil that is ever present in our world and can be around us, yet you provide. And we thank you for all of those in our community who are first responders, recognizing and realizing that when that tone goes off, when that call is made, they are there. They sometimes put themselves in harm's way. So we ask for their protection for each and every one of them, for the care, the concern, for the support and the comfort that they bring. We also ask your hand of blessing to rest upon our schools, upon our administration, the teachers, and those children. We recognize, too, as we see that so often there's dangers lurking out there. And we know that this area, along with many others, have been troubled with deaths because of drugs and some other things. And Lord, we just pray that you'll continue to raise up individuals who will step in, make a difference. Raise up individuals who can keep their eyes open, and raise up and stop these evils from happening and from taking place in our community. We thank you, Lord, for the continued growth of this area, to see the many positive things that are happening, to recognize and to realize that this is a part of what we would call our daily bread. It's the communities in which we live. It's the people who come here and make a difference. It's those who provide opportunities for fun and activities, and those who indeed are a special blessing that encourages people to be here and to share. We thank you, Lord, especially for the leaders in this community, those who have the day-to-day responsibilities in the office, the ones who hear both the words of praise but also the concerns and some of the troubles that may be present. We thank you for those who are willing to be elected into the city commissioners as they come together. But we know that they come because they have a caring heart, a desire to serve and to make this indeed a better place and to serve their neighbors. So be with them, give them wisdom, understanding in each and every situation. And we pray that as decisions are made, that there will be a walking together, a unity, and that we can see that this is for the good of all. Lord, we pray for blessings this night in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Vandembosch.
Here.
Commissioner Avery is absent this evening. Commissioner Hendrick.
Here.
Commissioner Clausen.
Here.
Commissioner Lechler.
Here.
Commissioner Slayson.
Here.
Commissioner Turner.
Here.
City Manager Levitt. Here.
Can I get a motion to receive and file communications with pending agenda items and an American with Disabilities document?
So moved.
Support.
Any questions or concerns on communications? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Moving on to public comment. Residents are welcome to address the city commission. Please state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Mrs. White.
Good evening, Judy White, 8757 Anchor Bay Drive, Clay Township. I'm here for 2 reasons this evening. I wanted to say that I'm here representing Friends of City Hall, and I want to say that we are in support of the Teen Rec Center, and I would like to ask permission if I could speak to that and speak to some proposals I would like to make when we get to that on the agenda this evening. Would that be possible? Thank you very much. I appreciate that. The second thing I'd like to say is Friends of City Hall is holding a major fundraiser at the beginning of next year. I have given you handouts regarding that. It looks like this. It is the Blue Denim Ball scheduled for the end of January at Perch Point Conservation. It will be food provided by Ackett's Catering. It'll be a full open bar. The ticket prices are very reasonable given those conditions at $40 a person, and there will be a dance band. We will do 50-50s and raffles and other money-making activities to try to raise as much cash as possible that evening. The purpose of this is to raise a significant sum of money to be devoted to the restoration and repair of the grand staircase inside City Hall. Now, that was originally a double staircase, and it was cut, about a third of it was cut away and destroyed many years ago, and a small office put in place of those descending steps. It is possible, with the right kind of expertise, to finish that staircase. And having done so, it will give us double exit from the Opera House upstairs, which improves safety enormously. So this is a very, I think, very important project for us. So tickets will go on sale starting tomorrow here in Marine City. 3 stores have volunteered to sell tickets. The usual Todd at the Sweet Tooth, he volunteers for everything, good guy. Donna Tebow at Vera Grace Emporium, and my son, who has no choice, Jesse White, at Marine City Gunsmith. It may strike you that we're starting early, but we're doing so for, I think, hopefully a canny reason. These tickets would make great holiday gifts. Think about it. That's it. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Almanis. I live at 322 Delina Street. I'm speaking here on behalf of some of our area churches who are holding an ecumenical service of awareness and healing on Sunday, October 29th at 4 p.m. in response to the opioid addiction and overdose epidemic in our community. The service will include hymns, prayers, and individual laying on of hands. Highlighting the service will be words from Reverend Deacon Dennis Crimmins, who is also the director of the Blue Water Area Church's Recovery Task Force. A reception will follow with representatives on hand from the St. Clair County Health Department and a prescription drug abuse work group. The service and reception are not intended to solve any problems. They will bring awareness and provide an opportunity for us to gather as a community, trusting that healing is possible. None of us knows exactly how to address this issue, but we believe that humbly joining together in prayer and song is a start. We also believe that the next steps will be made known to us in the process. I hope you will join us on Sunday, October 29th at 4 p.m. at Holy Cross Church. Thank you.
Bill Daniels, 206 Westminster, Marine City, Michigan. First, I want to let the City Commission know how well there'll be this summer newsletter. It's very informative, and the format that was used is excellent. So I want to let you know I certainly appreciate that, and I hope this will continue. The other thing, I started to read some of the agenda for tonight. Then I got going on the 2017 downtown parking study, the City of Marine City, prepared by Wade Trim, And I read a few pages, then I read a few more, then I read a few more, then I ran off 3 or 4 pages that I thought I'd like to keep in mind. Then I said, well, I might as well run the whole thing. So I jokingly said, I think I burned up my computer running that whole study up. But I think it's an excellent study, and I think it's a good guideline for the City Commission to use. And one thing I especially liked it right at the beginning, because I want to try to maintain, along with other people, the small town community that we have in Marine City. And I think this sums it up. Study purpose. The City of Marine City has undertaken this study to assess existing parking conditions and identify strategies for parking improvements within the city's downtown. It is the intent of the city in this parking study to provide and maintain convenient and safe downtown parking, and to beautify, preserve, and protect Marine City's historic charm and small town appeal. The city recognizes that adequate parking is a functional necessity that must be acted on as a community to maintain and strengthen the downtown's viability. So I appreciate the City Commission pursuing that study. There's a lot in it, and as I said, I instead of going back to my computer all the time, I thought, well, I might as well run a copy off, so when I want to read part of it, I can go ahead and do it. Thank you very much.
Hi, Rosalie Squires, 211 Michigan. I live in Mariners Landing condos, and I'm the longest resident of Mariners Landing condos, 22 years. Okay, at the last meeting, Reverend Police Chaplain Commissioner Lepley did the invocation. She mentioned lines similar to the Serenity Prayer, to accept the things we cannot change and the wisdom to know the difference. Also said, we stand on the shoulders of giants. It is one thing to stand on the shoulders of giants. It is another thing to step on the face of those who did goodwill for our community. Last summer, we used $750,000 to fix City Hall. We could have built a new building for the amount of money we spent on the old building that we can't even use. If the teens only need $100,000 to fix it up, to use, why not find the $100,000 to budget in the budget and move the office back to 300 Broadway and give the Guy Center to the teens like Bertha and Otto Guy wanted their inheritance to be used for? I think holding the Guy Center hostage has been done long enough. The city needs to get off of Bertha and Otto Guy's face of goodwill. Enough said about that. We used $200,000 of TIFA money to bring people into Heritage Days, and I complained that it wasn't ADA accessible. The Monday after the meeting, I brought all my notes from a presentation I did in 2008. There was all my writing on the front of it. It didn't cost the city anything because I gave 10 copies, one for the attorney, one for every one of you. I had it printed at Parkside Printing. Nobody had to pay for this. But I do want to mention, and anybody wants a copy, I got plenty of these copies. This is this document is current. I wondered if it was because this is from 2008. On page 22, it talks about temporary events, and it talks about what you have to do for ADA. It also talks about it on 23, and even the position of the porta-johns, those weren't even done properly. So I'm not just being a crab here. I stand on the shoulder of some giants too, mainly my mother. Back in the 60s, I remember my mother coming home from work and going out and getting petitions signed so that we could get standards in the state of Michigan for people that were disabled. That got passed. Then in the 90s, she was in her 70s by this point, she got petitions signed so that ADA would come about. That's 27 years old now. And, you know, we want to be a historic town, and it's good to be historic, but I think it's one thing to be historic and another thing to be backward. And I'm sure if you would talk to your attorney about that all of this is that I'm saying is not just smoke that I'm blowing. This is actual documents, and we are supposed to be doing them. And we are out of compliance and out of federal law when we don't do them. And anybody that wants one of these, like I say, I've got lots of them so that you know what I'm talking about. Thank you very much.
Ray Squires, 211 Michigan Drive, Marine City. Like Mrs. White, I would like permission to speak later and comment on the teen center that you'll be discussing later if I have your permission to do so. Thank you. The only other thing I have to say is at this time is I'd like to wish all our Canadian friends happy Thanksgiving, which they'll be celebrating on Monday. Thank you.
Scotcher from 430 Water Street. I just want to give a shout out to our executive director for Marine City Area Chamber of Commerce, who was able to secure this wonderful article in the Detroit Free Press for our upcoming event for Pumpkin Palooza Party on Saturday. But it's a wonderful tribute to the entire city, and if you haven't read it, please do read it because it is really a wonderful article, and we are blessed to have her as part of our community. So hats off to that. And if you haven't registered, you can register, well, you can purchase your pumpkins online, pumpkinpaloozaparty.com until Friday evening at 5 o'clock. And Saturday you can actually, we're gonna have walk-up registrations available as well. So we are going to break the record this year, so thank you.
Moving on to approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Any questions or concerns on the agenda? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next, moving on to the consent agenda, I'm going to need a motion for approval of the TIFA.
Minutes?
Oops.
7-8.
Oops, I'm sorry. Approval of the minutes for the city commission meeting, September 21st, 2017.
I move that we accept the City of Marine City Commission minutes from September 21st, 2017.
Support.
Motion support. Any questions or deletions or corrections? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Moving on to the consent agenda this time. I need a motion to approve the Tifa meeting minutes, August 15th, 2017, the 2017 Halloween trick-or-treat, the special event permit for Maritime Christmas Charity Walk Run, and the Maritime Days 2018 date approval.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Support. Questions or concern on the consent agenda? Yes.
The only question, first, the trick-or-treating hours, it's gonna be Tuesday, October 31st, from 5 PM to 8 PM, the usual. My only question is on this Christmas fun run. How are they gonna mark things? Because I know in the past, sometimes they started spray painting everything on the sidewalks or arrows and everything. Do you have some method, or do they have a method of how they're gonna?
I know that they said they're gonna follow the same run as what they did for Maritime Days, so I imagine they'll
Yeah, I
mark it
know,
the
but
same way.
There was a lot of spray paint, so I'm just curious how they're gonna mark the route.
Preferred method. You can let them know when we give them a call back regarding.
I think
the
even
status of
on
the
the
event.
Maritime Days, I think we had asked them to try to put up some type of signage. I know I don't know if they'll be able to get anything in the ground that time of year, but, it'd be a little bit better than spray painting all that onto the.
And there's some semi-permanent spray paints that you can use that won't last very
Yeah,
long.
as long as you can find something but some of them are still there, so. Somebody might get off on the wrong turn if they use some of the
I'll
routes.
put that in the letter, their acceptance letter to
Yeah.
look for.
Okay.
Anything else? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hendrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Buckley,
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson,
Yes.
Commissioner Turner,
Yes.
Mayor Vandembosh.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to unfinished business, the River Rec Teen Zone lease. I need a motion to approve.
I just, we forgot to excuse Commissioner Avery. Can we take a second to do that?
Sure.
Move that Commissioner Avery be excused.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Now moving on to the River Rec Teen Zone lease. I need a motion to,
I'll make a motion to approve the lease between the City of Marine City and the River Rec Teen Zone.
Support?
all right, because we probably got some definite concerns on this, so. Mrs. White, you wanted to speak on this?
As I said before, Friends of City Hall are certainly in support of the River Rec Teen Zone and believe it is important for Marine City. We were inspired by the presentation of River Rec Teen Zone, and we were also reminded of just how much we have to offer both the city and the teen zone in this matter. We ask that you consider our proposals along with the current proposal lease agreement being considered. We believe that our proposals would help coordinate and facilitate the hoped-for forward progress with 300 Broadway. Friends of City Hall was established, as is an established 501c3, with a 7-year track record of operating in the best interest of the City of Marine City, Historic City Hall, and Heritage Park at 300 Broadway. Our mission statement, articles of incorporation, and bylaws focus on 2 goals: the restoration and the preservation of City Hall. We have the appropriate insurance already in place. We are already eligible for mutable grants. Our bylaws constrain us from doing anything that does not benefit this property. Our building fund can only be used to fund restoration projects on and in this property, or matching funds to acquire grant and donated funding. We are in the process of completing an independent audit. This costly process will make us eligible to apply for large foundation grants to complete City Hall interior restoration. Our board is comprised of 4 city commissioners, 4 people with master's degrees, 2 with bachelor's degrees, 2 CPAs, and a federal price cost analyst. We share membership and purpose with the Marine City Historical Society, the Pride and Heritage Museum, the Women's Civic Club, the Marine City Garden Club, the Marine City Area Chamber of Commerce, and the River Rec Teen Zone, and the Marine City Historical Commission. We have a public-private partnership with the City of Marine City, resolution number 05-2015, approved unanimously at the regular meeting of said commission in March of 2015. We support the CHAMP plan, that is, City Hall, a mixed-use plan, which was put in place by the 300 Broadway Committee as part of their report back to the City Commission in 2007. They recommended the following uses as compatible with city government offices, welcome center, public restrooms, cultural center for like banquets, public meetings, and so on, and an office for a job incubator and tenants, and if they so desire, an office for the Chamber of Commerce. The CHAMP plan may be considered as our business plan at this time, but TIFA provides a business plan development incubator, and we would certainly avail ourselves of that assistance. We have a long history of working with J. Michael Kirk, AIA, who is a certified historical architect, and have been working closely with Linda Davis Kirksey, grant writing specialist, since her hiring. We have also been working with a paint conservator, decorative paint restorer, and Polymer Provenance, a company that specializes in restoration carpentry for the restoration of the Opera House staircase. We have raised almost $100,000 and spent approximately $80,000 in approved projects in and around the building. We are in constant fundraising mode, with our next effort being what I mentioned before, the Blue Denim Ball scheduled for January. Having said all this, we offer you 3 ways that we would be willing to help. Number 1, to lease the entire building to Friends of City Hall, and we would sublease the portion desired of the west area of the building to River Rec Teen Zone. This way, there would be coordination between all of their various factions and projects. Or, number 2, lease to Friends of City Hall at $1 a year with appropriate portions for the utilities, the remaining portion of the building not being leased to the River Rec Teen Zone. Or 3, investigate selling the entire building to Friends of City Hall with the caveat that we would only sell it back to the City of Marine City. This would make us eligible for a plethora of grants, and it would invite more donations in our belief. That's it. Thank you.
I heartily endorse the last option. You know, it's time to move on. Friends of City Hall, you know, I know they have a lot of, you know, we can do this with the building, we can do that with the building, and, you know, we've heard that for a dozen years now. I think it's time to move on. Please, please make a financial settlement. Give the building, if must be, to the Friends of City Hall, and they can go in any direction that they want to. You know, I love teenagers. I was a high school teacher for 36 years, and I still teach at the Blue Water Middle College at St. Clair County Community College. I love teenagers. However, You know, I believe there are a lot of opportunities for teenagers to enjoy themselves here. You know, if you want to put pool tables in there, ping pong tables, pinball machines, whatever. However, I think this is a brilliant suggestion by Mrs. White. Please, please give her the building. Give them the building. And let's put our focus on a new city hall. Marysville's talking about a new city hall. St. Clair, the city of St. Clair has a beautiful city hall that's used by a lot of people for various things. You know, I think we need to start looking at a bond or setting money aside so we can, you know, join the 21st century with our own brand new city hall. Thank you.
In front of us to lease directly to the River Rec Teen Zone. And we do have a motion on the floor and support to approve this property lease. Any questions or concerns on the lease?
I would like to postpone this until we investigate some of these other opportunities. I personally am not ready to make this move at this time. I think we can investigate some things. I know that there are some concerns that have been brought up just recently, and I would like to have more time.
Anyone else have any concerns? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. Yes.
All right. I think we should move forward with this lease. If the other group wants to present some type of lease for the rest of the building, that's up to them. But I think this was a unanimous decision the last meeting that we move forward on this. I think these kids have worked long and hard to get this far, and I think it would be a terrible thing to postpone this any further for all the hard work that those kids have put into trying to get this thing done. So, one question I have is on the second page, what do you do with that time period thing?
There are just two issues with respect to the lease. Number one is I just have to attach Exhibit 1, which would be the exact description of what's being leased. I know we have it. I think everybody agrees what it is. We just need to, whether it be a square foot box or, you know, some. And the second one is with respect to the repairs and maintenance. The last remaining question was how much time did you want to give the entity to complete the repairs and the maintenance issues set forth in paragraph 11? And that can be worked out with them. It's not a big component. I can fill that in with them. The rest of the lease has been presented, I think, and reviewed. Somebody provided handwritten comments, which were very legible, easy to follow, sort of. Right. So we kind of communicated back and forth, pretty much made a lot of the changes. We held firm on a couple other things, so been negotiated.
Okay.
A couple things just to offer perspective. A lot of us that have been working on the teen zone have been working on in excess of 2.5 years. So it's not just something that's just popped up. You know, we've been pursuing many buildings, early on in the process. We also looked at 300 Broadway. So it's a good deal of time going in here, and we've postponed a lot of efforts waiting to get to this point. One of the things that would be problematic, to speak to one of Mrs. White's proposals, is if we don't have a lease of 7 years or greater, that really interrupts Patronicity, one of our largest components of our capital campaign, our fundraiser, to make this happen. So if we don't have that, you're effectively making this dead in the water for the River Rec Teen Zone group. So that's a huge component of getting into the building, is utilizing that funding mechanism. of which we've vetted folks that use that portion for the beach fundraiser and other things. And there's a lot of work going on at both Riverview East and Marine City High School, utilizing students and how they want to market that program and working with that. So that's already underway. So that I just can't stress that enough. You know, if there was a sublease option, does not work. That's all I want to say on that portion. A couple points of clarification. Point 14, it talks about taxes and assessments. River Rec Teen Zone's a 501c3. Obviously, the City of Marine City owns that facility. What taxes would you be referring to? Obviously, if they had paid staff, of course, payroll taxes and those types of things, but beyond that.
If you notice in paragraph 14, it says, to the extent required by law. Because it's going to be a 7-year lease, entities change, law changes. Right now, there would be no tax. I agree with you.
For things that pop up.
But I don't want to have to redo the lease if the law changes or if we get a new, so to the extent required by law, taxes are paid. That's
Okay.
why that's in there, and I appreciate that. That's a good catch. It's just easier to put it in now than to redo the whole lease because you get some legislators up in Lansing who change the program. So if it was ever required by law, we'd be covered.
And point 12, and maybe I'm just interpreting this too literally, but surrender of the premise. Leasee shall surrender the premise to the lessor at the expiration of this lease in the same condition at the commencement date. Well, obviously, that goes against everything that we are looking to do. You know, the teen zone is looking to put a good deal of money, and at the surrendering of the lease, are you to say that they're to remove all of?
It's the normal wear and tear type issues, and now I hear there's just teenagers, so we might as well take that out, right? No, it's just that, you know, you can't return the premises when the lease is over, it just, you know, battered up and
Yeah.
we can fix that up a little bit, but generally.
I'm just trying to prevent years down the road, if there's a whole new commission in here, oftentimes you're stuck
Right, you
with
got the
what's on
language.
paper. Well, if I were to read that in my shoes right now.
If you balance that with paragraph 11 though.
Yeah.
And you read them in harmony.
Yep.
A condition of the lease is certain changes to the premises. Paragraph 12 was, you know, like a normal wear and tear clause.
Okay. I just wanted to have the conversation because they sort of work against it, depending on how it's interpreted, and we know how that works out. If you know.
I got you.
So I just wanted to bring up those two things.
I was going to say, one of our concerns is that a brand-new 501c3 is not eligible for so much. And what we're offering by working with a 7-year track record 501c3 that's already established in this area is that we can go after the big money and be helpful. And what I would like to do is to at least take a look at that. I'm only talking about 2 weeks on how that could or could not work. As we began to work with our grant writer and other grant writers, they made it quite clear. We need a track record. If you're going to Kresge, if you're going to William Russell, if you're going to these other people, which we are in touch with because of the company in Taylor that we are doing our audit with, they will not look at a young 501c3. And so we're offering our established to help them be successful. My concern is that they start into this and it doesn't work for them and there's discouragement. I think that if we look at this in tandem with what we're doing and there's more of a cooperative program, that we're going to ensure success for these people. We're concerned about that, and in talking to these people, they all said the same thing. So what we want to, and we want to offer to be helpful, to make this work. And we have some things that could be helpful to them. I don't know how that would fit together, but I do think it's worth taking a look at. That's why I just wanted to maybe table this even for 2 weeks till we can get more information on this, on how we can be helpful, how we can make this work.
I believe that you could do that even with the lease. You know, we could lease that section and then the actual historic part of City Hall doesn't even include that section of the building.
It does include the police office.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's almost mute to that point, so. Dave, you had a question?
Yeah, as recent as last week, I sat down with the grant writer Linda, working with the city, and she indicated that, if I'm hearing you correctly, one of the things you're indicating is the long-term audits. Well, Friends of City Hall hasn't even had one yet. She says when it comes down to those large grants that are requiring of those long-term forensic audits, they would need to 5 or 6 or 7. So in that case, Friends of City Hall doesn't even have that sort of demonstrated track record in regards to proven audits that might be required. But Linda has been wonderfully helpful and sat down with us on a number of occasions, again, as recent as last week, and has never indicated that the age of the group is ever an issue. So.
That was not true in our conversation.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns?
Just so commission is aware, we would have to comply with our charter requirements because this is a lease greater than 3 years, which is just procedural, just so you're aware.
I think you have that.
Can we speak on behalf of the River Teen Zone or no?
Sure.
We have a wonderful board who has been involved with this, as you know, for a long time. I understand Friends of City Hall. We respect what they've done. We appreciate the building and saving that building. We know that anything going forth is a group effort. There is a group also working on turning that building into an enrichment center. And with that name, terminology, there are grants that are available. And because of the Historic Society, they are more eligible for those grants. So us putting River Rec Teen Zone there is launching, we hope, bigger and better things, okay? We recently did find out that a lot of the plans that were done on the building do not include mechanical or electrical drawings. So there is a huge expenditure, probably $500,000, that needs to be invested by whoever goes forward on the other portion of the building. It takes a while to get grants. It takes time. You know, we are going to ask the kids to wait, what, another 2 years, another 3 years? When we can actually go in there, do renovations, get it to the point that it needs to be so that we can actually open and provide a safe place for these kids. That's our idea. We will do whatever we have to do to make Friends of City Hall or whoever follow. You have guidelines right there in the lease agreement that we have to follow. We'll provide plans, we're going to provide drawings, and we're going to work with the city on what we're going to, renovations that we're going to do to the building. So we're excited, we're thrilled, we're ready to, you know, just hit the go button. We've been working with these teens from both high schools. They've put together a fundraising package. They've developed, designed the space. It's just incredible. I mean, this is something that I don't think any community has ever done before. So we actually are doing something that's just absolutely phenomenal. So I hope we have, you know, continue to have your support and can move on because we're waiting, we're excited. Regarding the 7-year lease, I understand Patronicity does require a 7-year lease. So we're willing to, you know, take the gamble. Okay? Thank you.
All good.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Mrs.
I'm
Whitworth.
talking about 2 weeks, not 2 years.
Okay. All right. We have a motion on the floor. Any other questions or concerns? Points of order. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Clausen.
Yes.
Commissioner Buckley.
No.
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes.
Commissioner Turner.
Yes.
Mayor Vandenbach.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to the parking study. Is this for us to preview for the next?
So the parking study that you have in your packets and has been posted online is the draft parking study that Wade Trim completed based upon the proposal that we received from them, I believe it was back in April. This draft study is something we're just looking for any type of feedback if there's anything that maybe is not clear or there's incorrect information in there. If you can let me know so that we can have the final report ready for your receipt and file at the next meeting. After that, the next step would be to start working on the recommendations in the report and determining what steps we want to take and how we want to move forward with that. Obviously, some of the easier ones that they have mentioned in the report is about communicating the parking that we have through maps, better signage, possibly some wayfinding, restriping. Those are the easy things that they have outlined, kind of some of the areas where that would be beneficial to add that signage. A lot of other steps that are included in the recommendations obviously involve a lot more money, investment, and potentially either working with Wade Trim or someone to help develop either plans for expanding parking or working with the attorney on plans through the ordinances for establishing a fund that we can utilize to make more parking in the downtown area. So at this point, it's just the study for your review, and if you can get me any feedback within the next week so that we can get the final report ready for the next meeting.
All right, moving on to new business. Oh, go ahead.
Just a
I'm sorry.
comment. One thing that you didn't mention tonight was this partnership agreement. I'd like to see us pursue that with Riverbank, possibly with the post office, possibly with Holy Cross Catholic Church. I mean, that adds up to about 188 spaces right there.
What page is that on?
12.
Yeah, and that would be something we'd work with the attorney on to
Right.
prepare.
Yeah. But I just mentioned it because you didn't touch on it tonight.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I'd definitely like to see that be part of our next steps.
Okay.
This is in phases or separated into 3 areas? Are they looking to do it as separate areas? Or at one time?
Not necessarily. That was just, I think, more so for them to be able to kind of determine like one area that maybe is a little bit different than the other. I think it was kind of evident in the parking, and that's part of, I think, why they did those areas, because the central area kind of has the denser business populations and less parking, whereas the northern part, the beach, is a little bit different area, as is the southern part with the businesses and more off-street parking down there. I think it was just a matter of making things easier for them in the report.
Any questions, concerns, though? All right, now moving on to an ordinance.
I am sure, along with you and many people, are probably a little disappointed that we have not gotten to the point now where we have the ordinances ready for review and amendment before the snow flies and the parking permits for on-street property in the winter. I'm a little discouraged by that, but the volume of things that we have needed correcting in our ordinances is really overwhelming at this point. There are so many inconsistencies that we have found, and then also with the issues that we had recently with the recreation vehicles and placing the moratorium on that. I felt that that was something that really was a piece of the puzzle for the residential parking and kind of part of a determining factor for whether or not permits would be issued for on-street parking in winter events. We've also kind of taken a look at snow emergency ordinance and taking kind of some more information on that and trying to develop some type of policy for that so that we can bring a complete package to you. And what I would also like to do as part of this ordinance is not bring it to commission for a first reading, but bring it to commission as a draft and allow a public comment period for about 30 days to be able to get feedback from the community, the people that would be most affected from that. And based upon that feedback, bring it back to City Commission with any potential changes and then move forward into a first and second reading for those ordinances that would be affected. For the on-street parking for this winter, we, in essence, would continue the current program that we have one more year. potentially with a couple changes, which I could bring to the next meeting if everybody is agreeable to that. With the moratorium that we have in the our recreation vehicles, we might want to consider if that is part of the parking for someone if they want a parking permit. Is that something that you would take into consideration? So we'd like a little bit of direction in that. So if they have an RV, should they put that in storage and park on their driveway, or do we give someone a permit because they have the RV in the driveway? One other thing that I've taken a look at and considered based upon some feedback that we got last year was the permit fees. We can bring the schedule of fees back to commission for reconsideration. Right now, what I'm looking at is a $10 application fee per household, and then the parking permits would be based upon a review by the building official about equivalent space and what they need, and the permits for each vehicle that they would be allowed to have would be our cost, which is about $1.25 a sticker.
And then we just, go ahead.
Yeah, I know we talked about this because we had the gentleman last year that came in and had 4 cars and it cost him $40 and he did them all. As long as people do them all at once, it would be preferable that if they do, that we give them a break on it. And
I don't even think they'd necessarily need to do it all at once, because the $10 in essence would be the application fee for us to go out and field verify, determine how many cars that they could park in their parking or in their available driveway, and how many more they
in the
have
event they
driving people.
obtain a newer car within the, they could always add it.
Right, and if they change a car, instead of having to do a new $10 application fee, it'd just be the $1.25 for a new sticker.
I think that would at least get us through some of the arguments for this year, yes, so we can get the ordinances resolved.
Yeah. This is just a draft, right?
It's the current.
This is our current one. This is our current one right now.
And I still didn't like, even in the current one, but it's what's there, is that they can appeal to the commission. And I think that we should look at that to see if it goes to the zoning board of appeals, because when the commission says no, that's the end of it. If you're going through the board of appeals, then they have a right to appeal that through circuit court.
Correct.
But that would be in the new.
In the new one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in your new ordinance scheme, this commission is not going to be the Court of Appeals for very long.
So, yeah. Mr. Turner?
So with the permit fee thing, so the criteria is linear footage in front of their house dictates how many permits they can have, right? Based on what police chief and code enforcer determine.
Right.
Right. So
That's how it is
says
right
you
now.
can have 2, 3, 4, whatever.
Yeah, there's no specific criteria in the ordinance. It's subjective based upon
Okay.
what they determine
All
is
And
feasible.
the whole goal here is to get vehicles off the street when we have snow emergency, correct?
The whole
I mean,
goal,
that's
the whole goal is to have the minimal amount of vehicles as
On the
possible.
street.
Correct.
Yeah. During the evening hours, correct?
Not necessarily evening hours. It all depends on when DPW plows.
Okay. I thought it was from like
Yeah.
2 in the morning or something.
Oh,
2 to 6.
for parking, yes.
For
I'm
parking.
sorry. I'm thinking about the snow emergency. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And that all ties into whatever you end up doing, how do you enforce it, you know? It's difficult to enforce, even if you allow people to park there through the winter months. During those hours, you still have the issue. The goal is to have the streets available for plowing. That's the ultimate goal, right?
Yep.
So if we have an emergency situation where we get 6 feet, or 6 inches or a foot of snow, those vehicles are still there, correct?
Well, that would tie into a snow emergency, which we were working on that in conjunction with this.
Presently.
Yes.
Okay. So you're proposing to carry over what we have for another year until we can work out a new plan.
Yes.
Which I'm all in favor of that. But you haven't solved the problem. You still have the same problem. On top of that, like you mentioned, you have the moratorium on recreational vehicle. Adds to the mix. So,
Yeah, it's a problem that has
I think
probably
our
been around
focus-
since it's been approved in the 80s.
I'd like to hear what the rest of the board thinks, but I think our focus needs to be on a snow, rather than telling people from December to March or whatever, you can't park on there overnight, because that's what the permit thing is all about. I'd rather see us just not restrict parking, but only restrict it when we determine snow emergency based on conditions. And we work with DPW. If Mike tells us he needs 48 hours for this event to clear it off, then that's what the emergency is, 48 hours. I'd rather see us focus on that. That way, everybody has to get off the street and allow the plow to go through and clean it up.
So you mean like a declared snow emergency?
Yeah.
Right, so be getting rid of the permit system, allowing on-street parking, and only having
Yeah,
snow
because
emergencies to
the
clear.
permit thing, it's so difficult to enforce that too, especially with the number of police that we have. And
There are communities that have just a declared snow emergency, get your
Right.
car, get your
That's-
car off
that's
the street.
the
or
way
you
I'd like
will
to
be
see us
ticketed
focus
and
on. But I'd like to hear what the rest of the board thinks too, so.
Lisa?
I kind of agree with some of that. I know part of it originally was too that the city had to go out and verify if they had access to put in a driveway, if there was any room. Now, we have a lot of lots that aren't, but there are some that still are, and I know some people are still trying to add pieces to their driveway to get a little bit more room in there. So that's part of it. And then the snow emergency, it's a good idea, but if you start letting them all park in there and you have a snow emergency, and then they'll say, well, I didn't know about it, and I didn't hear about it, and then I got a ticket, and then you have that issue where it's, you get
Like
caught
it's
between a
hard
rock
to
and a hard
enforce.
place.
Hard
Yeah,
to
it's
enforce.
hard to enforce either way. Either way you're gonna do it. I mean, kind of everybody's sort of used to this, but here's the issue. We have it from 2 to 6, we get the snowstorm in the middle of the day, and he's trying to plow in the day, and everybody can park in the street, so it, it really doesn't do you any good.
Right.
It's only if he's plowing between 2 and 6 a.m. So, yeah, there's a lot of issues with it.
Dave, you had a comment?
Yeah, I agree, it's a catch-22. I like what Jim is saying about maybe that's a bit more simplistic to enforce just for the year until we have the opportunity to update the ordinance, but I do think we're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, but I think we need some mechanism in there, and it's, maybe we have to work with Mike about how we declare and put out the word for snow removal, and that's probably, we're gonna have to think about using the term, snow emergency for something that in the past probably wasn't a snow emergency. 3 or 4 inches, maybe not in the past would have been, but using this scenario now probably would be, just because we need to have, streets cleared. So, I think Mike probably definitely needs to be in that conversation before we could really further that.
We can utilize the WIN system too.
Yep.
I mean, if we can get more and more people to sign up, that would notify you that there's a snow emergency.
Yeah, we've actually been putting together kind of a worksheet on how we would deal with rolling out if we went the snow emergency route.
Mhm.
So.
I remember we did one
I think,
once.
yeah, this is something that, like I said, it can kind of go both ways, and why I
Mhm.
think that having a 30-day period with any type of draft to get feedback from the community, the people that will be directly affected from it, kind of see how they feel and what kind of feedback we get back.
Hold those hearings in the winter.
And actually, that really is a great idea, because
No,
then
it's-
everybody sees
otherwise
and knows
it's-
what's going on.
Otherwise, it's out
Yeah.
of sight, out of mind.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I do like the thought of the
Hold it on a snow day.
one application fee per household. That immediately addresses a lot of the concern that we received last year, and we know money's tight for a lot of people, so that really helps with that, while not putting an additional financial burden on the city as well. So,
Mr. Clausen?
Well, what do you consider a snow emergency? 5 inches, 10 inches? At that, but if you get 3 inches and your plows are going down the street, then they just can't stop and go. They're gonna leave snow behind people's cars. They're gonna leave them on the wheel side or the driver's side. And then you get the complaints from them, well, how could I move my car? Because now it's all snowed in. So it's not just a snow emergency when you get your 8 or 10 inches. It's when they still have to maneuver. And if they can't stop at every car and back up and pick up the snow and take it.
And there is a safety issue too with people walking between the cars, because that is, being out, got some experience of that getting out in the middle of the night, so.
There were several issues we kind of discussed about snow emergencies, that you would need to have some established criteria for when you issue the snow emergencies, and if you did get rid of the parking permits, I think the criteria would drop down, whereas, say now, if you have the parking permits, your criteria for a snow emergency might be 6 inches within 24 hours. If you have a snow emergency, you might need to drop it down to 3 if we didn't have the parking permits.
Well, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. There's a lot of communities that do that, so. I mean, you can-
And it's
you can
what's
research it.
going to work for the community
Yeah.
here.
But there's communities that have done it for years. You can figure out, they've worked out a best system, so. My only point is that all of this doesn't fix the problem, because the cars are gonna be on the streets, and the goal is to get the cars off the streets so they can be clean. That's the goal.
Yes, Ms.
I was going to say, this is one of those situations, there's no magic bullet. There's going to be exceptions along the way. But I like to take a look at what communities are having success with this. Where is there something that we can look at
You can find
where,
some.
where this is being handled well and with a small amount of complaint?
It's usually in your denser rooftop communities. We could start there, and then work our way to something that's more compatible to this community. Some of the dense communities, they limit parking to one side during snow emergencies because they really can't get them all off. But we could start and then work our way to something compatible.
We are getting close, so I think we need to make a decision if we're going to stay with the same program for the year and then start working on a new program.
Now's a good time to do it as winter's approaching. The hearings would be very relevant.
But at this point, do you need direction on the change on the,
If you want me to bring back the schedule of fees next time so that we can amend that, that seems to be something everybody agrees on. I can have that so that it would be ready. And then I should have some type of draft that we can at least discuss. And if for some reason that draft is, a direction that we want to go in, we might be able to tweak our program from an administrative perspective as much as possible. More so, that would probably be with the snow emergencies because we don't have an ordinance that really has specific terms for that.
But you're doing all that because you have a December 1st deadline facing you pretty
Yes.
quick. How much time do we anticipate it would take to redo the ordinances? I mean, can it be done with special meetings and?
63 days or something?
Yeah, you're always 2 months away.
But that schedule is based on?
State law.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the part I didn't know. I
Yeah.
thought maybe it meant special meetings.
Just timing, but we could talk to
Wade Trim.
Wade Trim and see what a good, one of the goals with Wade Trim was to get the most relevant and important ordinances to the front, and let's get them fixed, and then we'll, kind of work in an order. But as you go through your ordinance scheme, it's challenging.
Well, and another,
They all kind of need a little work.
but we're at this point, we are out of time.
And this has been on our list,
Oh,
hence the
so,
reason why I
yes.
asked him for a list, and that's why a couple meetings ago I said, so that's why we need to be addressing, it all comes back, and I think this is the 4th or 5th item, so that, we can say Wade Trim, but this has been well on our list before we even talked about doing that, so that's not an out, that's not I understand that's where we're at now, but frustrating,
But,
because that happened again, right, and it's gonna hurt us.
yes, Lisa.
What do you want to do about the travel trailers? Because you're going to have to address that kind of at the same time. You're asking for the same thing. If they have a travel trailer in the driveway, they need to get it out of the drive and park their cars in there and not have the travel trailer sitting there for the winter.
that'll be something that should be addressed in a draft that we have from Wade Trim at the next meeting.
So I think I just heard about 60 days, correct? And that-
When you do like first reading, second reading, adoption, you have to go through the
That's
process.
fine, I understand that. And your fear is that it puts you past the December 1st.
Right.
Put a 30-day moratorium on this?
And that's an option that we could do.
That's-
That's what I was going to
Push it to
say.
January. Most of the storm might not be there until then.
I think a lot is really going to depend upon what we get at the next meeting and
All right.
where everyone is with what we have.
Heat's on, get going, get it done.
Melt that snow.
It snows on.
Lit a fire under
Something
them.
back to us. All right, moving on then, unless anybody else has anything else on this topic. Moving on to Riverview East School Art Project.
Good evening. I'm Jason Steyer. I'm the visual arts teacher at Riverview East High School and also the president of the St. Clair Art Association. I've also brought some faces of Riverview East High School with me this evening. Dan Van Trusenberg and Dalton Formaz, a couple of my students, as well as some larger faces from our community. So we're here tonight, number one, to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your continued support and dedication to the River Rec Teen Zone. We see firsthand the need for this in our community. This is a student-driven project. They are the ones who are determining the need and how to address that and how to be a more effective part of our community. It's one of the most meaningful projects I've seen come through our schools since I've been teaching. So I thank you for your support with that and look forward to the things to come. We're also here tonight to invite you to take part in a growing community art project as well as a global art movement. The first half of that is the St. Clair Art Association's Block Project. The Block Project was started as an initiative to unite our community through creativity and collaboration. So we reached out to all the neighborhoods or blocks within our city and challenged them to transform 4-foot by 4-foot wooden blocks into works of art. Since the challenge, we started one block as a collaboration with our students at Riverview East High School, and it has grown into over 30 blocks that have been transformed into unique works of art by schools, businesses, neighborhoods, and civic organizations throughout our entire community. As that was happening, Riverview East was part of something called the XQ Super School Project, which is a nationwide initiative to rethink high school, to provide students with a stronger voice in what education could and should be, and to involve them in the community and involve the communities in our schools. While we were working on that project, a world-renowned photographer by the name of JR, who started a project called Inside Out, invited us to take part in that project. With Inside Out, JR has traveled to over 120 countries around the world. He captures images of people in various communities through photography. He's done over 300,000 portraits, which are then pasted in highly visible areas throughout those communities to spark conversations about those individuals and what those communities need to thrive, be happy, healthy, and successful. So we were invited as part of a 50-state initiative to spark a conversation around education. We were selected to represent the entire state of Michigan. So it's a big deal. Since then, we've captured over 100 portraits of students, teachers, community members, stakeholders, anyone who has a voice in education or an investment in education, and I think we'd probably agree that's all of us. The students have since utilized the Block Project as a vehicle to display those portraits. They've created 10 additional blocks. Each one contains 5 portraits, so that's 50 portraits. So now we have over 40 blocks of art that include the Inside Out project and the Block Project that we started in St. Clair. What we're asking of you is to be a temporary host for that project. We'd love to bring it to the city of Marine City. On Saturday, October 21st, all of the blocks will be on display in Plaza Park in downtown St. Clair, and we're hosting a community block party so everybody can come together, unite, and celebrate our collective accomplishments with this project. We'd love to see it travel to Marine City, perhaps once the block party is over, starting on October 22nd. It could stay as long as you would like, perhaps through the end of November. Eventually, the entire project is going to travel out to Grand Rapids for an international art exhibit that they do out there called Art Prize. So we're looking for a stop along the way. We'd hope that you would consider letting us use your parks, your green space, or any other suggested areas to display these blocks.
You're going to do all the moving, right?
Absolutely. They are.
Now, are the blocks weatherproof? Do they need to be covered?
They don't have to be covered. They've been designed to withstand the elements for a certain amount of time, some better than others. But there's no concern about maintenance, and we'll take care of all that, anything that goes wrong in the meantime, anything that needs repair or attention.
I think it's a great idea, you know, like Jason indicated, there's several events recently that, you know, Jason and others have spearheaded, you know, to have this conversation. It's so important right now. You know, I think anything we can do to be thought-provoking or, you know, to start that conversation, I think that's, you know, this is an easy buy-in for us. I think to help that along, there are other people that are doing a lot more work on that, and you know, I would make a motion that we support the block project as being a temporary host, and I would suggest maybe that details can be worked out between Mr. Stiers and our city staff about
Support.
locations.
Support.
How much does that cost for that picture of Dave?
Well, we're going to have a silent auction on that one. I would ask that
Minimum bids.
anyone who would like to be involved with the project, we'd love to capture your portraits tonight before you leave, so that we can all join in and join forces in the project.
So you're thinking about putting them in a park and just displaying them for X amount of days and?
Sure. And we do also have an additional 80 plus, depending on how many more portraits we collect between now and then, that we are looking for other spaces that are around our community. Those are meant to be temporary. They're wheat pasted on walls, on buildings. I've seen them on freight cars and buses, just so that they're out there to spark those conversations, and then they're easily removed and actually deteriorate over time. So if you have any suggestions for displaying the additional portraits, I'd be welcome.
And now, you were talking about putting them in a park. How long, like you were, say, a week, 2
Well,
weeks?
Yeah, we definitely want to kind of beat the winter weather coming in. I think we could safely do through the end of November, but around here you really don't know. So maybe a week, 2 week period,
Okay.
whatever.
And now,
you
do
feel is
we have
reasonable.
anything left as in activities in our park? I know we have the pumpkin thing coming up this weekend, but do we have anything in the future that may,
We got things like Watchman Park that already has some public
Right.
art that doesn't get a lot of traffic, and, you know that.
but I just didn't know if we had anything that would conflict with the.
That's why the motion would, you know, have them work out details.
Wondering, okay.
Okay.
Well, they're pretty portable, right? I mean, if something came up, we needed to move it, we can move it.
We have a crew. We'll move.
You said something about some other pieces that you were going to put up and they would leave them up till they deteriorated. Is there a plan for their removal or responsibility for those?
So typically with the Inside Out project and the other locations around the globe, they're pasted on buildings with a wheat paste, which is a pretty temporary paste. It's made with wheat flour and sugar. So depending on the weather, they could last a couple months. They could last longer, but probably not around here. They're easily removed. They can be power washed or removed pretty easily with soap and water.
Motion and support on the floor. Any other questions or concerns on it?
Just a comment, I think it's a great idea. Thanks for bringing it to us.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you. Now we're moving down to financial business, which is disbursements, including payroll of $316,373.85.
I move to approve disbursements, including payroll of $316,373.85.
Support.
Questions or concerns on the bills? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Levely?
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Mayor Vandembosh?
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick?
No.
Commissioner Clausen?
Yes.
Moving on to the city manager's report.
Last week I met the new city manager in Algonac, and she seems very receptive to collaboration and working with neighboring communities. She's very nice. I hope that you all, through some activity or meeting or something, will have an opportunity to meet her. I attended the SEMCOG meetings regarding the pilot water asset program that the governor has been rolling out, and also the water monitoring program that they are looking to reinvigorate and extend, which we are still participating in. I attended the district library's 100th anniversary event that was well attended and had a local author from Port Huron that was the main speaker. I attended ZBA, and yesterday I also attended the On the Table teen discussion event at the at the Marine City High School. It was absolutely wonderful event, and I was so impressed with the teens and the way that they think, and seeing the River Rec teens all together. It was an incredible experience. Held another department head meeting. We've just kind of been working on some other things within the office and communication. First round of code revisions are almost ready. As I mentioned, we'll have that information at the next meeting. The pavilion restrooms are tentatively slated to be winterized and closed by November 1st. I know that there have been a lot of issues with the waste hauling. We have been keeping a log of the complaints. Kathy in our office has been keeping a list, so if you have any complaints, please call our office. We are keeping track of those. Body cameras has been something that's been in the news recently. I'm sure people have probably noticed that Port Huron and Clay Township are receiving body cameras through a grant. It has not been in the paper for us, but we are receiving those same grants for the body cameras as well, so those will be forthcoming. The county is working on language for the policies and procedures for the use of those cameras. Pending agenda items, discussions that I have had, I am going to look to make some changes to that. I think what I'm going to do is make that more so a manager's report and have updated information for each of those items, and add other things that have been coming up to keep you guys more informed and the public as well. I should have that ready for the next meeting, and that's all I have.
Any questions?
Just a quick question, if we've heard back from the state about anything from the Safe Routes to Schools, or is that still just begrudgingly slow?
We had a meeting with them, and there were some issues that were noted. We made the corrections with our engineer and have returned those back to the state, have not heard back from them yet. Okay. I did see that on the 25th, the East China School District approved the easement agreement. The other easement that we have had some minor modifications. The people for that easement are out of town and should be back, and hopefully they'll be able to review those and sign those as well.
Do we feel like we're still on a pretty good track to?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Anyone else have questions for the city manager? Thank you. Mrs. Lepley, you want to start us out tonight? Sure. Mr. Privilege.
First of all, I bring you all greetings from Diane Lovett. She called me today and misses everybody, and she's homesick, and wanted me to convey her good wishes to everybody. Also, I got a phone call from some of the chaplain work that I did. November 10th, there's going to be a veterans celebration on Walpole Island. So if anybody would like to be a part of that, it should be quite enjoyable. And also, I just loved the Free Press article, and I thank everybody that had to do with that as we go forward. And also, go Blue.
Well, it'd be interesting to see everybody at the Pumpkin Fest on Saturday. It does take off at 4 o'clock. You have to be there before 4, but the count starts at 4 o'clock. And you got a card for 5 minutes. It's easy, just punch holes. No.
Well, it needs to be a work of art.
You have power tools?
Oh, look out.
You have to use the tools that they give you. I talked to, I noticed that there's some stuff going on, and I talked to the Kmart Mall, the show, and he's cut his hours because of lack of participants. And I think we do have to get out there and support all our theaters and movie shows, or they're not going to be there for us. Thank you.
Got a few things. First of all, unfortunately, I will not be able to make our next meeting. We're still working 6 months now without a replacement staff member at the Performing Arts Center, so I try to juggle my schedule the best as I can, as always, but that, for obvious reasons, has to take a priority. So I just want to let folks know in advance, and my apologies for that. There are some really cool things going on with the youth, East China schools. This weekend, the Count of Monte Cristo, Mariner Drama, their production runs. In fact, they open tonight. Saturday performance has plenty of tickets left at 7 p.m. at the Performing Arts Center, so that's a great show. It's a modern adaptation of the old book that many of you probably read in school. Marine City High School and St. Clair High School are pairing up to host the Michigan Schools Band and Orchestra Association's annual Marching Band Festival, which is really cool. There's many marching bands from around the region, and even as far as getting closer into Detroit. So I'll come to East China Stadium this coming Tuesday, starting at 5 p.m., and they'll play part of their halftime show. They're adjudicated by some judges within MSBOA, but it's a really cool event, typically hosted in Port Huron, so it's unique that the district gets to pair up, but that's a really cool thing. People should come on out and support them, and it's fun to see the creative halftime shows everyone comes up with, and that's a great thing. And then most of you probably heard that follow Facebook, but for those of you that don't, Marine City Highway is going to be closed between Meldrum and Hessen October 9th through the 20th. There's a bridge reconstruction there. I know most people rely on Marine City Highway, so those of you that might not be as aware of those, the 9th through the 20th, you'll have to find an alternative route. They have some posted, but I'm sure we could be creative with other routes too, but closed in both directions, 9th through the 20th.
Lisa.
I just have one thing. I know all of you know Irene Antonowitz, who worked for the city for a little over 17 years, and she was one of our best employees, and she took a job elsewhere. Well, please keep her and her family in your thoughts and prayers with the passing of her husband. It's really hard for her and her family, and so make sure you do a little something for her, send her a little card, or do something for her family, but keep her in your thoughts and prayers, please. Thanks.
Just a couple comments. Wreck River Teen Zone, I think is a great thing. That's something I've wanted to see happen in this community for a long time. I tried to do it, to organize it years ago, and it was difficult. It's not an easy thing to do. And I commend this board for your support. I think that's a great thing. I also think your pending agenda item list is a good thing that you're going to revamp that. I'd like to see if you could also maybe put in there some target dates when you think they'll come to us. That's it.
I just want to remind everybody about the pumpkin carving, which we've already talked about, but Friday night we'll be setting up, and especially those taller gentlemen that can reach down to the bottom of the bin, because some of us are a little shorter. We'd appreciate your assistance. They're heavy this year too. Sorry. But it'll be a good time. I'd really like to thank Erica DeLange by getting her airplane ride back from Seattle and running into that Free Press editor was, that's gold. That was wonderful for the community, and it touched base on so many different aspects of town. And my mom didn't enjoy her picture being taken as many times, but and Danny enjoyed it. But on a sad note, though, I do have to also, we lost a decorated paramedic and firefighter this week to an auto accident. He worked for Tri-Hospital EMS full-time and was a paramedic there and also a firefighter for Fort Gratiot. So if you see the guys from Tri here at the festival or something, just give them a nod, please, because it was a deep, he was one of their best paramedics. And like I said, he already received a life-saving cross, so it's going to be a tough one for them, and he's going to be buried on Saturday. So with that, can I get adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.